My name is Lucinda Thompson, 51 years old, and I never thought my retirement as an elementary school teacher in coastal Maine would begin with such heartbreak. The 4th of July has always been special for our family, full of barbecues and fireworks. This year, I drove 3 hours to Boston, carrying a homemade apple pie and hope in my heart for reconciliation with my daughter. When Sophia opened the door, her face changed from surprise to coldness in an instant. "Mom, you're not welcome here. I only invited..." Before I continue with my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If this is your first time here, please subscribe and hit that like button. Sometimes the most painful family stories teach us the most powerful lessons about standing up for ourselves. I stood there frozen, the weight of the apple pie suddenly heavy in my hands, the July heat pressing against my back. Sophia's words hung in the air between us like smoke. Without saying another word, I turned and walked back to my car, the pie still clutched against my chest. I didn't cry until I was safely inside my hotel room, the door locked behind me. How had we gotten here? My mind drifted back to the life I had before everything fell apart. Richard and I were married for 26 years. We met in college, both studying education, though he later switched to administration. I still remember our wedding day, how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how sure I felt that we would grow old together. We had our first child, Jake, when I was 20. Sophia came 3 years later. They were beautiful children, Jake, with his father's thoughtful blue eyes, and Sophia with my auburn hair and determination. Our home in Maine was small but filled with laughter, family dinners, and traditions that I thought would last forever. Richard coached Little League. I led the school book club. We hosted neighborhood barbecues every 4th of July, our backyard filled with friends and the smell of grilling hamburgers. The first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday 3 years ago. I came home early from school with a migraine to find Richard's car in the driveway at an unusual hour. Walking quietly through our front door, I heard voices from upstairs. A woman's laugh, soft and intimate. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my migraine forgotten, listening to my husband and his colleague Amanda together in our bedroom. I remember how calm I felt in that moment, almost detached, as I walked up those stairs and pushed open the bedroom door. Amanda was younger than me, 36 to my 48, with sleek blonde hair and the kind of confidence I had lost somewhere in the years of raising children and grading papers. Richard's face when he saw me was not even shock but resignation, as if he had always known this day would come. "How long?" I asked. "A year," he answered, not bothering to deny anything. I stayed at my sister's house that night, and within a week I had filed for divorce. Richard didn't fight it, which hurt almost as much as the betrayal. 26 years together, and he let it end with barely a protest. What I didn't expect was Sophia's reaction. My daughter, my baby girl, who used to crawl into my lap with scraped knees for comfort, took her father's side. "You didn't even try to work it out," she accused Coriance during a tense family dinner a month after the separation. "You just gave up. Dad made a mistake, but everyone deserves a second chance." Jake tried to be the peacemaker. "Soph, Dad was the one who cheated. For a year. Mom deserves better than that." "People get through affairs all the time," Sophia insisted. "If Mum really loved him, she would have forgiven him." Her words cut deep, as if I was the one who had broken our family. As if I hadn't spent countless nights crying myself to sleep, wondering what I could have done differently. Richard and Amanda got married just 1 year after our divorce was finalized. I saw the wedding photos on social media, Sophia standing beside them, beaming proudly. Jake had refused to attend. The real turning point came when Sophia began referring to Amanda as her bonus mom. Each time she mentioned Amanda's name in conversation, each time she posted photos of the three of them together, it felt like another small betrayal. I tried to be understanding, to give her space to navigate this new family dynamic, but it hurt. Last Christmas was the breaking point. Sophia invited me to dinner at her apartment, and I arrived to find Richard and Amanda already there. She hadn't warned me they would be coming. When I pulled her into the kitchen to ask why, she shrugged. "I wanted a normal family holiday for once. I thought you were over all this by now." "Over it?" I whispered harshly, aware of Richard and Amanda sitting just feet away in the living room. "He cheated on me for a year in our own home. God, Mum, let it go already. Amanda says you're just bitter because you're alone." I left immediately. For 6 months after that, Sophia and I barely spoke. Just polite text messages on birthdays and holidays. So when she called me 2 weeks ago to invite me to her 4th of July party, I was surprised and hopeful. Maybe she was ready to repair our relationship. Maybe she missed her mother. "It'll be casual, she said. Just a barbecue and watching the fireworks from my rooftop. You should come. I'd love to, I replied, my heart lifting for the first time in months. What I didn't know was that invitation would lead me to her doorstep, rejected and alone, on what should have been a day of family celebration. I checked into the Harborview Hotel in Boston the day before the 4th, wanting to have time to shop for a nice outfit and prepare the apple pie that had been a family favorite since Sophia was little. I chose a blue sundress that brought out my eyes, spent extra time on my makeup, even got a blowout at the salon near the hotel. I wanted to look my best to remind my daughter of the mother she used to adore. The morning of the 4th. I woke early with butterflies in my stomach. This could be the beginning of healing between us. I carefully packed the still warm apple pie cinnamon and sugar wafting up from the golden crust and added a bottle of Sophia's favorite white wine to my bag. I had also bought her a delicate silver bracelet with 2 intertwined hearts, a piece offering a symbol of my hope for our future. I arrived at her brownstone apartment building at 2 o'clock an hour before the party was scheduled to begin. I thought I might help her set up like in the old days when we would prepare for gatherings together, Sophia laughing as she arranged flowers while I finished cooking. But as I parked across the street, I noticed a familiar black SUV already in front of her building, Richard's car, and beside it, a red convertible I recognized as Amanda's. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. They were already there, already inside, already part of the preparation I had hoped to share with my daughter. For a moment, I considered driving away. But no, I had been invited. I had every right to be there. This was about rebuilding my relationship with Sophia, not about Richard or Amanda. I gathered my bags and crossed the street, taking deep breaths to calm my racing heart. The July heat was intense, making the back of my new dress stick to my skin as I climbed the steps to her second-floor apartment. I could hear laughter from inside glasses, clinking music playing. They sounded happy. I knocked, shifting the pie to balance it on one arm while holding the wine and gift bag in the other. The door swung open, and there was Sophia, her auburn hair piled on top of her head, wearing a red and white striped tank top that made her look younger than her 28 years. For a split second, her face registered surprise, then confusion, then something harder. "Mom, what are you doing here now?" I smiled, trying to hide my uncertainty. "I thought I'd come help set up. I brought pie and wine." I lifted the items slightly in offering. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She didn't move from the doorway, didn't invite me in. Behind her, I could see into her apartment decorated with red, white, and blue streamers. Richard was sitting on the couch, a beer in hand, while Amanda arranged food on the dining table. "Mum," Sophia said, her voice low and firm, "you're not welcome here. I only invited you for tomorrow's brunch, not today's party." I blinked, confused. "What?" "No, you said the 4th of July barbecue. Today." "I said brunch on the 5th. You must have misunderstood." Her tone left no room for debate, though I was certain of what she had said on the phone. "But I drove all the way from Maine. I got a hotel room." Sophia glanced over her shoulder, then back at me. "I'm sorry you got confused, but today is just for close friends and family. Tomorrow is when I invited you." The words close family stabbed me. I was her mother. How was I not close family? From inside the apartment, Amanda's voice floated out. "Sophia, who's at the door? We need more ice." Sophia tensed. "It's nothing. Just someone with the wrong apartment. Someone with the wrong apartment. Not even my mother." I was a stranger, an inconvenience, an embarrassment. Through the gap beside Sophia, I caught Richard's eye. He had turned to look, and for a moment our gazes locked. He had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. Didn't stand up for me, didn't tell Sophia to let her mother in. In that moment, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of putting others first, of making peace, of accepting less than I deserved, hardened into something new. I did not beg, I did not argue, I did not cry. Instead, I simply nodded, once turned, and walked away with my pie and my wine and my carefully chosen gift. I heard Sophia close the door behind me before I reached the stairs. The drive back to my hotel was a blur. Traffic was heavy with holiday travelers, and the sun beat down mercilessly through my windshield. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't want cheerful 4th of July music mocking my pain. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the pie. The smell that had seemed so comforting hours earlier now turned my stomach. I set it on the desk and stared at it, the symbol of family and tradition and love that nobody wanted. I called the front desk and cancelled my reservation for the following night. There would be no brunch tomorrow, whether I had been invited or not. Then I packed my overnight bag, left the keycard on the desk, and headed for my car. I would drive home tonight. I would sleep in my own bed alone, but not humiliated. As I pulled onto the highway heading north to Maine, fireworks began to explode in the distance, celebrating independence. How fitting, I thought. Today might just be my Independence Day too. The drive from Boston to my home in Maine normally takes 3 hours, but holiday traffic stretched it to nearly 5. I didn't mind. The longer I drove, the calmer I felt, as if each mile was creating necessary distance between me and the pain of Sophia's rejection. It was well past midnight when I finally turned onto my street, a quiet lane lined with old maples, just a few blocks from the elementary school where I had taught for 20 years. My small Cape Cod-style house was dark and silent, exactly as I had left it the day before. I sat in the driveway for a few minutes, gathering my energy to go inside to face the emptiness. The house felt different when I entered, almost as if it recognized my new state of mind. I dropped my keys on the entry table and stood in the darkness of my living room. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the familiar shapes of my furniture, my books, the photographs on the mantel. I didn't turn on the lights. Instead, I moved through the darkness to the kitchen, set down the now slightly crushed apple pie, and poured myself a generous glass of the wine I had bought for Sophia. I took my drink to the back deck and sat in my favorite wicker chair, listening to the distant pop of late-night fireworks. Someone in the neighborhood was still celebrating. I lifted my glass in a silent toast to them, to their joy, to their intact families and unbroken hearts. My mind drifted back to Sophia as a child, her small hand in mine, as we walked to the park, her delighted laughter when I pushed her on the swings. "Higher, Mommy, higher." She would squeal, fearless and trusting. When had that trust broken? When had I become someone she could dismiss so easily? I had given up so much for my family. My dreams of becoming a research scientist had been set aside when I got pregnant with Jake. Teaching elementary school offered stable hours and summers off to be with my children. Richard had pursued his career ambitions, moving up from teacher to vice principal to district administrator, while I stayed in the same classroom year after year, nurturing other people's children along with my own. Now at 51, what did I have to show for those sacrifices? An ex-husband who had cheated a son who tried to stay neutral, and a daughter who treated me like an unwelcome stranger. The first light of dawn was breaking when I finally went inside. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. Something was burning in me, something new and unfamiliar. Resolve, perhaps? Or simply the recognition that I had reached the end of a path and needed to choose a new direction. I walked through my quiet house to the spare bedroom that I had converted to a home office after the divorce. In the bottom drawer of the desk was a box of family photographs I hadn't looked at in years. I pulled it out and sat cross-legged on the floor, lifting the lid. There we were, the 4 of us smiling on beaches in front of Christmas trees at school events. Jake's graduation, Sophia's dance recitals, family vacations to the Grand Canyon, to Disney World, to Washington, D.C. So much happiness captured in these images. Had it been real, or had I been blind to what was happening beneath the surface? At the bottom of the box was a folder of artwork and cards the children had made over the years. Handprint turkeys from Thanksgiving, construction paper, hearts for Valentine's Day, crayon drawings of our family standing beside a lopsided house. I opened the folder and a small envelope fell out. Inside was a card Sophia had made for Mother's Day when she was 8. On the front was a drawing of the 2 of us stick figures with enormous smiles holding hands under a rainbow. Inside, in her careful 3rd grade handwriting, "Dear Mommy, you are the best mum in the whole wide world. You make the yummiest cookies and give the warmest hugs. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Love, Sophia." The tears I had been holding back since standing on Sophia's doorstep finally came hot and fast, dropping onto the faded crayon drawing. That little girl was gone. The woman who had replaced her saw me as an embarrassment, someone to be scheduled for a separate event from her real family. I cried until there were no tears left, until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen. Then I carefully put the card back in its envelope, returned the box to its drawer, and went to shower. As the hot water washed over me, I made a decision. This would be the last time I cried over Sophia's rejection. Tomorrow would be the first day of my new life, one built on my terms, centered on my own happiness rather than others' expectations. As I finally fell into bed, exhausted and empty, I could hear more fireworks in the distance, the celebration of Independence Day stretching into the morning hours. Independence, freedom, yes, that's what I needed now. Freedom from the past, from pain, from the constant hope that things could go back to how they were before. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would begin again. I woke up late on the morning of July 5th, the sun already high in the sky streaming through my bedroom windows. For a moment, I felt the familiar weight of sadness pressing down on me, but then I remembered my resolution from the night before. Today was the first day of my new life. I got out of bed, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with a notepad. At the top of the page, I wrote, "Things I've always wanted to do but never did." Below, I started listing dreams I had set aside years ago: travel to Europe, specifically Paris and the south of France, learn photography beyond just snapshots of family events, take an art class, volunteer teaching literacy to adults, join a hiking group, learn to sail. The list grew as I remembered parts of myself that had been dormant for decades. When I was young, before marriage and children, I had been adventurous, creative, eager to try new experiences. Somewhere along the way, I had lost that version of myself, becoming defined primarily as Richard's wife and Jake and Sophia's mother. As I looked at my list, I felt a spark of excitement for the first time in months. These weren't impossible dreams. I had my teacher's pension, some savings, and a house that was almost paid off. I had time. I had freedom. The only thing I had been lacking was permission to put myself first, and now I was giving myself that permission. The doorbell rang, startling me from my planning. When I opened the door, my friend Grace was standing there, concern written across her face. "I got your text last night that you were back early," she said. What happened? Grace and I had been friends since we started teaching at the same school 20 years ago. She had been my rock during the divorce, bringing over wine and takeout on the hardest days, listening to me vent without judgment. "Come in," I said. "It's a long story." Over more coffee at my kitchen table, I told Grace about the disastrous trip to Boston, Sophia's cold rejection, and my night of soul-searching. "That little brat," Grace muttered when I finished. "After everything you've done for her." I shook my head. "I'm done being angry about it. I'm done feeling hurt. I'm just done." "What do you mean?" I showed her my list. "I mean, I'm going to start living for myself. I've spent 30 years putting everyone else first, and where has it gotten me, alone on the 4th of July with a pie nobody wanted?" Grace studied me, her head tilted. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. In fact," I said, tapping the first item on my list, "how would you feel about a trip to France this fall? September is supposed to be beautiful there." A slow smile spread across Grace's face. "Lucinda Thompson, are you asking me to run away to Europe with you?" "I am. 2 weeks Paris and the French Riviera. We can drink wine, eat bread, and not think about anyone but ourselves." "Count me in," Grace said without hesitation. God knows I could use a break from real life too. After Grace left, promising to look up flights and hotels that evening, I continued my day of self-reclamation. I deleted all of Richard's old emails from my inbox. I unsubscribed from Sophia's social media updates, tired of seeing her happy photos with Amanda. I called my hair salon and booked an appointment for the following day, deciding it was time for a new style, something modern and confident. Next, I drove to the community college and signed up for a 6-week photography class that was starting the following week. On my way home, I stopped at the mall and bought new clothes, not my usual practical teacher wardrobe, but pieces that made me feel attractive and vibrant. A red dress that I would have considered too bold a week ago, stylish jeans, leather boots I had admired for months but talked myself out of buying. That evening, I submitted an application to volunteer at the Adult Literacy Centre in town. Teaching had always been my passion, and helping adults who had missed educational opportunities seemed like a meaningful way to use my skills. As I was making dinner, my phone rang. It was Jake. "Mom, I heard what happened yesterday. Sophia called me last night freaking out because you didn't show up for brunch this morning." I nearly laughed at the absurdity. She didn't expect me to still come after what happened, did she? Apparently so. She said you misunderstood about the party but were definitely supposed to come today. His voice was tight with anger. I told her she was full of it. "I know she invited you for the 4th. She told me she had. You didn't go to her party either." "No," Jake said firmly. "When I found out Dad and Amanda would be there, I told her I'd pass. I'm not pretending we're all one big happy family when he treated you the way he did." Warmth spread through my chest. At least one of my children still had my back. "Thank you for that," I said softly. "So what did you do instead? Please tell me you didn't just sit alone in a hotel room." "Actually, I drove home and spent the day making plans for myself. Grace and I are going to France in September." The surprise in Jake's voice was evident. "France? Wow, Mom, that's great. You've always wanted to go there." "Yes, I have. And now I'm going. I'm also taking a photography class and volunteering at the Literacy Centre." "Good for you." His voice softened. I've been worried about you, Since the divorce, you've seemed so sad. I was sad, but I'm not anymore. I'm angry, and believe it or not, that feels better. After talking to Jake, I felt even more committed to my new path. That evening, I created a Facebook group called Second Act Support for Women After Divorce. Within hours, 5 women from my community had joined, all of them navigating similar transitions. We arranged to meet for coffee the following week. For the first time in 3 years, I went to bed feeling truly peaceful. The weight of trying to win back my daughter's affection of competing with Amanda for a place in Sophia's life had lifted. I was free to focus on myself, on building a life that wasn't defined by my relationships to others, but by my own desires and dreams. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized I hadn't checked my phone for messages from Sophia all day. And more surprisingly, I didn't care if there were any. The next morning, July 6th, I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. I had silenced most notifications, but calls were still coming through. I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be Grace, with details about our trip. Instead, Sophia's name flashed on the display. I let it go to voicemail. Within minutes, it rang again. Sophia. Again, I didn't answer. A text message appeared. Mom, please call me, it's important. I'm so sorry about what happened. Another call, another ignored call. 3 more text messages in quick succession. Mum, I need to talk to you. Please answer your phone. I made a terrible mistake. Please call me back. I silenced my phone completely and went about my morning routine. I had a hair appointment at 11 and I was looking forward to the change. My hair had been the same shoulder-length style for years, practical and unassuming, like so much of my life had been. Today, I would ask for something different. At the salon, I showed my stylist, Maria, a photo of a chic shorter cut I had found online. Are you sure? Maria asked, surprised. This is quite a change. I'm sure, I said firmly. It's time for something new. As Maria worked cutting away inches of my hair, my phone continued to light up with calls and messages from Sophia. I turned it face down on the counter. Someone really wants to talk to you, Maria commented. They can wait, I replied, watching another lock of hair fall to the floor. I'm busy taking care of myself right now. By the time Maria finished, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. My new haircut was sophisticated and confident, framing my face in a way that highlighted my cheekbones and eyes. I looked younger, more vibrant, like the woman I was becoming rather than the woman I had been. You look amazing, Maria said, meeting my eyes in the mirror. I feel amazing, I replied, and realized it was true. When I finally returned to my car, I had 6 voicemails and 11 text messages from Sophia, plus 2 calls from Jake. I decided to call my son back first. Mom, where have you been? Jake asked when he answered. Sophia's been calling me non-stop crying, saying she needs to talk to you urgently. I was getting a haircut, I said calmly. What's going on? Jake's voice lowered, as if he was making sure he wasn't overheard. There was a huge fight at the party after you left. Dad and Amanda got into it in front of everyone. What were they fighting about? Apparently, Amanda found text messages on Dad's phone from some woman he works with. It's not the first time from what Sophia overheard. He's been cheating on Amanda too. The revelation should have satisfied me, given me a sense of justice or vindication, but I felt nothing except a distant pity for Amanda, who was learning the hard way. What I already knew, Richard couldn't be faithful. That's unfortunate, I said, my voice neutral. There's more, Jake continued. Sophia heard Dad and Amanda arguing in the kitchen later. Amanda accused him of turning Sophia against you, deliberately telling her lies about why you got divorced. This caught my attention. What kinds of lies? That you had emotionally abandoned him years ago. That you had talked about leaving him even before he met Amanda. That you refused marriage counseling when he suggested it. None of that was true. I had been blindsided by his affair, had never considered leaving him, and he had been the one to refuse counseling, saying it was too late to fix things. Sophia confronted Dad after Amanda stormed out and things got ugly, Jake said. He admitted he might have exaggerated some things to make the divorce easier for her to accept. Then she found out he's been trying to get his lawyer to challenge the divorce settlement, claiming you hid assets or something. I didn't hide anything, I said sharply. We disclosed everything. The court approved the settlement. I know that, Mom, and now Sophia knows it too. She heard him talking to someone on the phone about finding legal loopholes to get half of your teacher's pension, even though the divorce agreement specifically excluded it. I processed this information, trying to understand what it meant for me, for my relationship with Sophia. She's devastated, Mom. She feels like she's been manipulated for years, used as a weapon against you. She stayed up all night crying, saying she needs to talk to you to apologize. And you think I should call her back right away, let her apologize, and everything goes back to normal. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Jake was quiet for a moment. I'm not telling you what to do, Mom. I'm just letting you know what happened. After hanging up with Jake, I sat in my car in the salon parking lot staring at my phone. Sophia had hurt me deeply repeatedly over years. One revelation about her father's manipulation didn't erase that pain. Part of me wanted to call her immediately to comfort her, as I always had when she was hurting. But another part, the part I was learning to listen to, held back. Let her wait, I whispered to myself. Just as I've been waiting, hoping for her to see the truth. I drove home, made myself lunch, and worked in my garden for the afternoon, deliberately leaving my phone inside. The physical labor of pulling weeds and trimming plants felt good, grounding me in the present moment, rather than the emotional turmoil of the past. That evening, I called Grace to finalize details for our trip. We settled on 2 weeks in September, splitting our time between Paris and Nice, with a few days in wine country. As we talked about museums and restaurants and coastal walks, I felt genuine excitement building. This was really happening. I was really changing my life. After dinner, I finally listened to Sophia's voicemails. Each one sounded more desperate than the last, her voice breaking as she begged me to call her back to give her a chance to explain. The final message ended with her sobbing, "I need you, Mom, please." I sat with those words for a long time. I need you. For 3 years, she hadn't needed me, hadn't wanted me, had chosen her father and Amanda over me at every turn. Now that her perfect image of them had shattered, she was turning back to me, expecting me to be there, waiting arms open. Forgiveness automatic. I sent her a single text message. "I'm home if you want to come talk." 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Sophia stood there, her eyes red and swollen from crying, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mum," and burst into fresh tears. I stepped back to let her in my heart, both softening and steeling itself for the conversation ahead. Sophia followed me into the living room, her steps hesitant, as if she wasn't sure of her welcome in the house she had grown up in. She looked around, noticing the changes I had made since the divorce. New paint on the walls, different furniture arrangement, the absence of family photos that had once crowded the mantel. "Your hair," she said, her voice small. "It's different." "I got it cut today," I replied, gesturing for her to sit on the couch while I took the armchair across from her. Establishing a little distance felt important. Sophia perched on the edge of the couch, clutching her purse in her lap like a shield. Up close, I could see how exhausted she looked, with dark circles under her eyes and skin pale beneath her freckles. "Did you drive all the way from Boston today?" I asked. She nodded. "Right after I finally got your text. I've been calling and calling." "I was busy," I said simply. "Too busy to answer your phone when your daughter is trying to reach you." There was a hint of the old accusatory Sophia in her tone. "Yes," I said, meeting her eyes directly. "I was busy taking care of myself, something I've recently realized is important." "Okay." She looked away, properly chastised. "I deserved that." "Why are you here, Sophia?" I kept my voice calm, neutral. "To apologize. To explain." She took a deep breath. "To tell you that I know now what Dad did. How he lied to me about you, about the divorce, about everything. Jake told me about the fight at your party." She winced. "It was awful. Amanda was screaming, throwing things. Dad tried to deny it at first, but she had evidence. Messages on his phone from some woman at work." Sophia's voice broke. "He cheated on her, just like he cheated on you. I'm sorry you had to see that." And I was. Despite everything, Sophia was still my daughter, and I hated to think of her witnessing such an ugly scene. "It's not just that," she continued. "After Amanda left, I confronted Dad about things she said during the fight. About how he had poisoned me against you deliberately." Tears welled in her eyes again. "And he didn't even really deny it. He said he had managed the narrative to make sure I didn't blame him for the divorce. Those were his exact words, manage the narrative, like my relationship with my own mother was just some PR problem to solve." I sat perfectly still, letting her talk, letting her work through this revelation at her own pace. "He told me you had been distant for years before Amanda, that you had talked about leaving, that you didn't love him anymore. He said you refused to even try counseling." Sophia looked up, her expression pleading. "None of that was true, was it?" "No," I said quietly. "It wasn't. I had no idea he was unhappy, let alone unfaithful, until I found him with Amanda. And he was the one who refused counselling, not me. Sophia covered her face with her hands. I've been so horrible to you. All this time I've blamed you, judged you, sided with him. I even let Amanda take your place at family events like she belonged, and you didn't. Yes, I agreed, not softening the truth. You did those things. Why didn't you fight harder? She asked, dropping her hands to look at me. Why didn't you tell me he was lying? Why did you just let me believe him? For the first time, I felt a flicker of anger rise within me. I did tell you, Sophia, many times. You chose not to believe me. You decided I was bitter, jealous, unable to move on. You took his word over mine at every turn. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I was wrong. So wrong. Can you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air between us. Could I forgive her? Did I even want to? The pain of the past 3 years couldn't be erased by one tearful apology, one moment of clarity. I don't know, I said honestly. I need time to think about that. Mom, please, she begged. I need you. I feel so lost right now, so betrayed. Everything I thought I knew about Dad, about our family, it's all been a lie. I understand that feeling very well, I said. I lived with it every day for 3 years without anyone to comfort me or tell me it would be okay. Sophia's tears flowed freely now. I'm so sorry. I can't believe how blind I've been, how cruel. When I saw your face at my door on the 4th, when I told you to leave, I knew it was wrong even as I was saying it. But Dad and Amanda were inside, and I was embarrassed because I had told them you weren't coming until the next day, and it was all so complicated. Why did you invite me at all? I asked the question that had been bothering me since I received her call. Why the 5th instead of the 4th with everyone else? Sophia looked down at her hands. Dad suggested it. He said it would be less awkward if you came for a separate event, that we could have quality mother-daughter time without the tension of him and Amanda being there. It made sense when he said it. She shook her head. Now I see he just wanted to keep us apart to maintain his control over both relationships. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of all that had been lost all the time, wasted heavy between us. Finally I spoke. I've booked a trip to France with Grace for September. Sophia looked up, surprised by the change in topic. France? You're going to France? Yes, Paris and the Riviera. I've also signed up for a photography class and volunteered at the Adult Literacy Centre. I gestured to my new haircut. I'm making changes, Sophia. Good changes for me. That's great, Mom. She seemed genuinely happy for me, if a bit confused by my focus on these details now. You've always wanted to go to Europe. Yes, I have. For 30 years I've wanted to go. But there was always a reason not to. The kids were too young. Money was tight. Your father couldn't get time off work. I put that dream aside like I put aside so many others because I was a wife and a mother, and those roles came first. I leaned forward slightly. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm putting myself first now. You deserve that, Sophia said softly. I do. I agreed, and the certainty in my voice seemed to surprise her. That's what I've realized these past few days. I deserve good things. I deserve respect and honesty. I deserve to be more than someone's mother or ex-wife. Sophia nodded, tears still streaming down her face. Would you like to see some old photos? I asked suddenly, the idea coming to me. I found them last night. Pictures of you when you were little. I'd like that, she said, wiping her eyes. I retrieved the box from my office and set it on the coffee table between us. Together we looked through the photographs, remembering beach trips and birthday parties, school plays and snow days. Sophia laughed through her tears at a picture of herself at 6, covered in mud, after a rainstorm, grinning widely with a missing front tooth. You were so angry, she recalled. I ruined my new dress playing in that puddle. I wasn't really angry, I said, studying the photo. I was trying not to laugh because you looked so ridiculous and so happy. We continued through the box, the shared memories creating a tentative bridge between us. When we reached the cards and artwork, I showed her the Mother's Day card she had made at 8 years old. She read her childish declaration of love with fresh tears. I meant every word of this, she whispered. I know you did, I said. That's why I kept it all these years. As the evening wore on, Sophia grew increasingly exhausted, the emotional toll of the past 2 days evident in the droop of her shoulders and the heaviness of her eyelids. It's late, I said. Why don't you stay in your old room tonight? You can drive back to Boston tomorrow. Are you sure? She asked hesitantly. I don't want to impose. You're my daughter, I said simply. You're never an imposition. I showed her to her old bedroom, now converted to a guest room, but still with touches of her childhood in the quilt on the bed that my mother had made for her, the small bookshelf still holding some of her favourite stories. "Try to get some sleep," I said, lingering in the doorway. "Things often look clearer in the morning." "Mum," Sophia called as I turned to leave. "Thank you for listening to me tonight, for not turning me away like I did to you." I nodded acknowledgement, but didn't say that it was okay, because it wasn't. Not yet. "Good night, Sophia." Later, as I lay in my own bed, I heard muffled crying from her room. Part of me wanted to go to her to comfort her, as I had when she was small and woke from nightmares. But another part knew she needed to work through this pain on her own, just as I had worked through mine. Still around midnight, when the crying grew more intense, I did go to her. I sat on the edge of her bed and stroked her hair as she sobbed. "I've lost everything," she choked out. "Dad, Amanda, my trust in them, in myself. I've been so stupid." "Not stupid," I said gently. "Manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to control you. Your father has always been good at getting people to see things his way. How do I fix this? How do I make it right with you?" "Time," I answered truthfully. "Time and consistent actions that show you've really changed. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day, Sophia." She nodded against her pillow, understanding the long road ahead. Eventually, her breathing steadied and she fell into an exhausted sleep. I stayed a while longer watching over her as I had when she was a child before returning to my own room. Morning brought a fragile peace. Sophia and I made breakfast together, moving around the kitchen with careful politeness, finding our way through this new dynamic. She admired my new clothes, asked about my photography class, seemed genuinely interested in the life I was building. Around noon, Jake arrived, having texted me earlier to ask if it was okay to stop by. He hugged me tightly, then gave Sophia a more reserved greeting. "How are you holding up, Soph?" he asked, his tone gentle despite the tension between them. "I've been better," she admitted. "But Mom let me stay last night and we talked. A lot." Jake raised an eyebrow at me, silently asking if everything was okay. I nodded slightly, letting him know we were working through things. "I thought maybe we could have a late 4th of July celebration," Jake suggested. "Just the three of us. I brought steaks to grill and fireworks are legal in the backyard here, unlike Boston." "That sounds nice," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. A family gathering, our small, broken family trying to mend itself without Richard's presence for the first time. That afternoon, Jake grilled on the deck while Sophia and I prepared side dishes. The conversation was careful at first, all of us navigating this new reality, but gradually became more natural. We talked about Jake's job in software development, Sophia's work as a graphic designer, my plans for retirement. No one mentioned Richard or Amanda, though they were present in the careful gaps in our conversation, the topics we instinctively avoided. After dinner, Jake set up a few small fireworks in the backyard. Nothing elaborate, just some sparklers and fountains, but as we stood together, watching the colourful sparks against the darkening sky, I felt a sense of rightness, of a circle beginning to close. "To new beginnings," Jake said, raising his beer bottle in a toast. "To new beginnings." Sophia and I echoed, our eyes meeting over our wine glasses. It wasn't perfect. The hurt was still there, the trust still fragile, but it was a start. 1 year later, I stood on my back deck, watching Jake set up for our new 4th of July tradition. He and his girlfriend Megan were arranging chairs, while Sophia laid out plates and silverware on the picnic table. The smell of charcoal heating in the grill filled the air, mingling with the scent of the flowers I had planted in window boxes along the deck. So much had changed in a year. The woman I had been last 4th of July, standing rejected on Sophia's doorstep, felt like a stranger to me, now a distant memory of a life I had outgrown. I had gone to France with Grace in September, as planned, spending 2 glorious weeks exploring Paris museums, drinking wine in sidewalk cafes, and walking along the Mediterranean coast. I had taken hundreds of photographs, putting my new skills from the photography class to good use. Some of those photos now hung on my living room wall, reminders of the brave new life I had built for myself. The adult literacy program had become a central part of my week. I spent 3 mornings helping adults learn to read, finding deep satisfaction in their progress. One of my students, a 58-year-old man who had hidden his illiteracy his entire life, had recently read a book to his grandchild for the first time. His tearful thank you had meant more to me than any teaching award I had received in my career. My relationship with my children had evolved too. Jake and I had always been close, but now there was a new dimension to our connection, a mutual respect that went beyond the mother-son dynamic. He saw me as a whole person, not just his mother, and I treasured that shift. With Sophia, the healing had been slower, more complicated. After that first night of confession and tears, we had established a careful new relationship. Weekly phone calls, monthly visits. Small steps toward rebuilding trust. There had been setbacks, moments when old patterns threatened to re-emerge, but we had worked through them with honest conversation and the passage of time. Richard and Amanda had divorced 6 months ago. The affair that had come to light at Sophia's party was not an isolated incident, and Amanda had finally had enough. Richard had tried to contact me after their separation, sending emails, asking to meet to talk to clear the air. I had declined. There was nothing left to say between us, no closure I needed from him to move forward. Sophia's relationship with her father had become strained, but not severed. She saw him occasionally for coffee or lunch, but the idealized image she had held of him was gone forever. She had apologized to me multiple times over the past year, each time more genuine than the last, as she came to fully understand the depth of the pain she had caused. "Mom, can you bring out the salad?" Sophia called from the deck, interrupting my reflections. "Coming," I replied, turning to go back into the kitchen. As I gathered the large bowl of garden salad I had prepared earlier, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. My hair was still in the shorter style I had adopted last year, though I had let some grey come in naturally, rather than continuing to colour it. I looked good, healthy and vibrant, my eyes clear and confident. Outside, I set the salad on the table and turned to the man standing by the grill with Jake. "Does the fire look ready, Thomas?" Thomas Smith had come into my life unexpectedly through the photography group I had joined last fall. A retired architect with a passion for landscape photography, he had first been my mentor, then my friend, and eventually, cautiously, something more. At 53, he had his own history, his own scars from a difficult divorce, and we moved forward slowly, each of us careful with the other's heart. "Almost there," he answered with a smile. "Another 5 minutes should do it." As Thomas and Jake discussed grilling techniques, I felt Sophia come to stand beside me. "I like him," she said quietly. "He's good for you." "I like him too," I admitted. "But I'm taking it slow. I don't need someone else to make my life complete anymore." "I know," Sophia said. "That's why it's working, I think. You're not looking for someone to save you or define you." Her insight surprised me, evidence of her own growth over the past year. At 29, she was more thoughtful, more aware of the complexities of human relationships than she had been before. "Look what I brought," she said, pulling a small wrapped package from her bag. "I wanted to give this to you today." I unwrapped it carefully to find a photo album beautifully bound in blue leather. The cover was embossed with the words, "The Strength of Silence." Inside were photographs spanning the past year, many I had never seen before. Me in France, standing before the Eiffel Tower, laughing with Grace at a sidewalk cafe. Teaching at the Literacy Centre, my face animated as I worked with a student. In my garden at family gatherings with Thomas, with my support group of divorced women who had become dear friends. "Jake helped me collect them," Sophia explained. "From Grace, from your Facebook posts, from Thomas. I wanted you to see what I see when I look at you now." I turned the pages slowly, seeing myself through my daughter's eyes. The woman in these photographs was strong, joyful, engaged with life. So different from the sad, diminished person I had been 3 years ago. "Do you know what I learnt from you?" Sophia asked, her voice soft. "That sometimes silence speaks louder than words. When you walked away from my door that day, without arguing, without begging, when you didn't immediately answer my calls afterward, it forced me to really see what I had done. If you had fought back, if you had tried to explain or convince me, I might never have realized how wrong I was." I thought about that, about the moment I had turned and walked away without a word, how that simple act of self-respect had ultimately changed everything. "I didn't plan it that way," I admitted. "I just couldn't bear to beg for a place in your life anymore." "It was the wake-up call I needed," she said. "Seeing you stand in your own power like that. I want to be that strong someday." I squeezed her hand. "You already are. It takes strength to admit when you've been wrong to rebuild what's been broken." Jake called us over, announcing the steaks were ready. As we gathered around the table, Thomas reaching for my hand, Jake pouring wine, Sophia sharing a joke that made us all laugh, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Last year's rejection had been painful, humiliating, heartbreaking, but it had also been the catalyst for transformation, forcing me to rebuild my life on my own terms, to discover strengths I hadn't known I possessed. Later that evening, as we sat on lawn chairs watching Jake set up the fireworks, Thomas leaned over to me. "Happy whākū, yes," I said, and meant it completely. Very happy. When the first burst of colour exploded against the night sky, I looked around at this small gathering. My son strong and kind. My daughter finding her way back to honesty and love. A new friend who might someday be more. And myself at the centre of it all, no longer defined by my relationships to others, but by my own choices and values. The fireworks continued lighting up our upturned faces with red and blue and gold. Independence Day, indeed, I thought. I had found my own independence, my own freedom to be fully myself. Life would continue to have its complications, its sorrows, its disappointments. But I would face them as this new version of myself, the woman who had walked away in silence and found her voice in the process. Thank you all for being here tonight, I said during a lull in the fireworks. This past year has taught me that life is not about the people who leave us, but about those who stay, and about learning to love ourselves through all the changes. Sophia raised her glass. To Mom, she said, the strongest woman I know. As we all touched glasses, I felt the truth of it settle in my heart. The strongest woman I know. Yes, that was who I had become. Not despite the heartbreak, but because of it. Have you ever faced a moment where someone's rejection turned out to be the beginning of your own transformation? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. If you want to hear more about overcoming family challenges and finding strength in difficult times, remember that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to our greatest growth. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find your own strength in silence when you need it most.